All right, good morning, everybody. Hey, welcome to day three of the virtual note buying workshop. We're honored to have you guys here. We've got a lot of stuff to cover today. Just want to do kind of a quick recap for those of you who are joining us today. Day one, we covered on how to find notes, obviously. Um, mortgage bankers, banks, leveraging LinkedIn, other note sellers, other note platforms, the Texas Mortgage Bankers Association. One thing I didn't cover on day one was how you can leverage the foreclosure lists that come out in each state or each county. Here in Texas, we've got 200 plus counties, and there's a service called FLS, Foreclosure Listing Service. It's known as the Roddy list. George Roddy's a buddy of mine out of Dallas, and he pulls information on foreclosures because we do things so fast here in Texas. 21 days to foreclose. If you can file stuff, was it 20 days prior to the first Tuesday, you can foreclose that next month if the bar is 90 days behind. And every state has foreclosures, right? Some are better listing services for specific areas. FLS online is what I like when I'm pulling, and I'll track a couple counties like Houston or Harris County, Bexar County, which is San Antonio. Travis County, where I'm at in Austin, doesn't see a lot of foreclosures. And while it's great, I like to see kind of those two counties for the most part. And now that gives you a bunch of lists. Now, one of the things that I do with the foreclosure list is I get rid of all the bigger banks, like the Bank of America, the Chases, the Cities. In the foreclosure list, it'll list who the lender is. I'll just get rid of all the bigger banks, the Deutsche Banks. So it leaves me out with smaller banks or smaller entities. Obviously, there often is a lot of LLCs. I'll get rid of the HOAs off that list, but that leaves me with a pretty good solid list of motivated sellers who are getting ready to foreclose on. Now, the foreclosure list, I don't target those banks for that asset. Like if an asset's going to foreclosure, I don't target that asset. Now, I do use that asset as a warm lead into the right department, like the special assets department or secondary market department, to see about getting on their list to get their full list across the state or across the country. Now, as I showed you guys how to jump on LinkedIn and find the right asset manager for the bank and search for that stuff, what I'll do is send a message and say, attention, urgent, and the address of the property going to foreclosure. And that's the whole goal, is just literally to get on their list. I don't know if you'd be interested in selling this note. I'd love to talk with you about it. If not, I would like to, would you be willing to provide what you have all across the state of Texas or all across the country, because I buy distressed debt. Now, if you can't find the asset manager through LinkedIn or some other service, like Crexy or something like that, you can also go after going, like I call it, the back door through the foreclosure attorney. Now, it'll actually show you on the foreclosure list who the attorney is, and you can reach out to them. Now, once again, I like targeting smaller attorneys because they're a lot more flexible. There's a few that do a mass majority of them, and they're not really great about responding back. But some of the smaller attorneys have worked out pretty well in being introduced. And so, listen, I'd love to talk to the person who is you're working with at such and such bank. I'm interested in buying the note and keeping you on for the foreclosure process or for other deals, and going from there. So that's worked out. I mean, you get a list of 500 foreclosures, you might have it whittled down to 50 to 60 smaller institutions that you can buy from. And that's worked really, really well. I've called that list. That's one thing that's worked really, really well for me over the years. Of course, it slowed down when foreclosures fell off. And then back when COVID stopped foreclosures for a while, it just didn't work at all. But in April 2021, I believe, here in Texas, Harris County was one of the first counties to reenact the foreclosures. But when I pulled the list, it was up to like 600. And a huge amount of it was LLCs that were foreclosing. So like hard money lenders, some private lenders. It wasn't a lot of bank foreclosures, but it was still worthwhile because we pulled a couple private investors off the list because we could see Equity Trust for the benefit of, or Equity Trust or Quest Trust. It was like five or six investors that were foreclosing on their private loans, and made contact with all of them pretty relatively easy. So that's just another little tidbit to keep in your cap. Besides finding IRA investors at the county, like we talked about yesterday. And I think some of you guys really enjoyed that, of how to jump on the county recorders or the county appraisal website and do a search for Equity Trust or Quest Trust in counties to find all the investors. I mean, what did we find? 1,000 private investors in about 5 minutes. Yeah, it's pretty easy to do. Now it's just up to you to send a postcard, to send a letter, to follow kind of what we've gone through in the manual, in terms of, and I'll bring up the manual in a little bit to kind of walk you guys through that. But today is going to be primarily about exit strategies. We've got another tape I'm going to bring up, a little bit of older tape, but that's okay. It's a good tape to learn off of, and kind of going through the process of breaking down that tape to find the deals from the duds. And it's always one of the favorite things that people like that we do. I don't think anybody else really does a live breakdown that publicizes it. If you are on our YouTube channel, hey, good morning, Stephen. I'm sure you guys can see that we've done 400 notes, 300 notes, 70 notes. It's one of the things that I enjoy doing. It's not difficult. It may piss some people off. I don't really give a rat's ass. Because that's the best way that you learn. The only way you're going to learn how to break down tapes is to see more people do it and do it yourself. All right. That's the golden rule. I mean, you got to learn to buy for yourself, not be a waiter for somebody else. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just a matter. We have to realize at some point that you have to build cash flow for yourself. I mean, we all get in this rat race of doing the same thing over and over and over again, right? Just because you make more money doesn't mean you end up investing and saving more. I mean, we've got deals that are still paying us from 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, which is just phenomenal, right? I get a letter, hey, so-and-so got paid off. Okay, great. I mean, there's even a portfolio we bought that we knew we weren't going to collect on, because we got it basically for free. Like I've structured some pretty interesting deals over the years. Like I had one portfolio for an investor, a couple guys of mine, a couple coaches of mine. We came across a list of 305 REOs, low balance REO, and there's some nice stuff in there. And they're like, man, they'd love to take this down. And I said, well, let's look at this. So we structured to pull current values on all that stuff relatively easy. And I said, well, listen here, guys, if we wholesale, if we flip, I mean, we're getting these at like 10 cents on the dollar. I mean, it was ridiculously cheap. There was a lot of junk, but there's also some pretty nice assets. It was just the lender didn't want to deal with these low balance assets. Anything below 100, they basically gave us zero value to, because they couldn't go and refinance themselves. Anything, that's the hard thing about small balance loans, is you can't go to a bank and get a loan most of the time. But we knew that appreciation was going to kick in, and these guys like, well, we could turn these into quicker little rentals, and they were fine with the rental business. I was like, okay, that's fine. So we looked at the top 19 or 20 assets and realized, okay, if we sold those at 65% of value, remember these were REO, so they're all, the foreclosures already basically taking place. The bank's just holding this big portfolio. So if we take this down and we flip these 19 or 20 at 65%, so it's a good deal for somebody, it will actually help us finance the remaining 280. Okay. And they were like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah. I mean, there's some decent assets in there. I think I got a video somewhere of this, the 18 or 19 that we flipped, but it was like 600,000 for that. I mean, it was ridiculously cheap. It was one of those deals you're like, why not? Right. And those guys turned, I don't know what they do. They flipped probably 100 of them. They kept 100 for them. And then they worked out mods. No, they weren't. I think they turned a bunch of them into contract for deeds, remember correctly, or owner finances, rentals, because it was all across the country. Some are good, some are bad, but the bad, they wrote off their profits. And that's the great thing too about we do. And that's, somebody asked me the other day about tax benefits here. Now, buying the note, we don't own the property, right? And with owning real estate, you get depreciation, you can do cost segregation, all that stuff to write off profits. It's a different mindset here. Now, yes, when we take a property back, when we foreclose, can you then keep it if you want to? Of course you can. And then you can do the cost segregation, then you can do all the depreciation, all that good stuff. But what we do here, for the most part, is if we're modifying stuff, we don't modify it immediately. And that's one thing I want to keep in mind. When we buy a note, if somebody's in trouble, we don't go to a modification immediately. We're not going to forgive a lot of debt right off the bat. We're not going to forgive debt for at least a year. The reason is the IRS looks at notes that if you modify them, they want you. So let me give you an example. So let's say borrower owes 100, the house is worth 75, and the borrower hasn't paid in a year or two. Okay. Well, if you were to buy that note, say at 30 grand, and immediately modify the bar, bring it down to what the value of the property is worth at 70 or 75, the IRS wants to tax you 75, even though you haven't received $1. Okay. even though you haven't received it all, you've only paid 30 grand for it. They want to tax you. You need to, in this instance, you would need to get a third party person like myself to come in and give you an independent valuation. Say, no, it's not worth 75. It's worth 30 plus any cash flow you've gotten along the way. You know, that's the value. And you need a third party. And we do those for people. I'll do some per year. Some people come back to me, some people don't. It just varies. They figure out. Anyway, the way to avoid having that short-term capital gain, which is what it basically comes if you basically modify it, it turns into a short-term capital gain, is to do what's called a trial payment plan. And we'll get into more of that a little bit later on. But basically, that's just like, listen, Mr. Borrower, hey, Forrest, you haven't paid your mortgage in 2 years. I'm not going to modify your loan for you. Immediately, you're going to have to pay something, bring something to the table, some skin in the game, and make some sort of payment for a year, 12 months before I will modify. You got to do what you say you're going to do. We got to get you back on track before I go and modify it. The reason for that is if you do it, hold it for a year and a day, it's a short-term capital gain. It's not a long-term. I mean, it's a long-term capital gain versus a short-term. Okay. And you'll find out if that borrower is serious about staying. Because here's the thing: if you modify the terms of the agreement, shorten it, reduce the principal, reduce the interest rates, guess what? You don't need an RMLO to do that. Okay, don't need that. You can all do that through your servicing company. Okay, they'll help you out with their real estate attorney. But if you do that, it resets the statute of limitations for the foreclosure process. So if they were 90 to 120 days behind, and you modify, guess what? It resets it. Now, if they stop paying, you got to wait another 90 days to then start the foreclosure process. So a trial payment plan, you can suspend it, stop, I won't say stop it, but suspend the foreclosure to see what they do. Because that's very important. If a borrower makes one monthly payment, especially if they don't bring anything to the table and then they miss another payment, then what you want to do is basically refund, return that first payment, and we hold it in escrow. So we tell them, listen, we're not going to apply these payments for 3 months until we're sure that you're going to make something, unless of course they bring a sizable chunk down, 4 or 5 months or more. And look, I get it. People have their car in the shop, they run into a ditch, mom's in the hospital, nobody wants to buy real estate these days, overpriced for rural property, so people have a hard time making ends meet. I get it, but I'm willing to work with people, but you got to meet me halfway and you got to be realistic. I can smell bullshit from across the telephone. I can call people on their bluff pretty fast. And one of the things that we do a little differently than most people do is when we buy a note, especially if it's a non-performing note with a borrower and we're not going to finish the foreclosure process. There's sometimes we buy notes that we know we're going to foreclose. We know it's just going to go that route. The borrower hasn't paid in 4 years, hasn't responded to the servicing company. Maybe the previous servicing company sent out a door knocker and they pulled a gun or, told them to go pound sand. Well, all right, that's fine. We don't need to waste more money dealing with idiots out there. We're just going to finish the foreclosure process. All right. And that's okay. I mean, we've bought, and that's part of the process. Like I said, you're not going to reinstate everybody 100%. Some of these things you're going to buy and you're just going to foreclose on them. And here's the thing. You're going, the stuff that's sub 500, really $500,000 in value these days, really more so 300,000 and below. Those are the ones you're probably going to get modified and reinstate quite a bit. Now, here's the thing. If it's got a low interest rate, sub 5%, you're probably not going to want to reinstate and modify them or work for them to reinstate, because it's going to be a low ROI to you for the long run because they've got low interest rates on there. So those are the ones that you're like, listen, you may need to bump it up an interest rate, but you're not, it's going to be a hard thing trying to buy one of those notes from the bank, because if it's at a 3% interest rate, well, for you to get 9, if they just start paying, that means you can only pay 33 cents of the dollar. And banks aren't at that point yet. Now, it's hurting them. It would be smart if they did sell for that 33 cents of the dollar because of the low interest rates that they finance. They could get that cash in and make it up in points and yield spread and all that other stuff. But there's that gap of those low interest. Yes, it was great to buy and finance or refinance your house in that period of low interest rates. It's not good for note buyers, because I'm not going to buy that low interest rate at a price. I'm not going to pay 80 cents a dollar. I'm not going to pay 90 cents a dollar. My money costs more than that. You know what I mean? That's one thing you have to keep in mind too, is when you're talking like what we talked about yesterday in raising capital and talking with investors and kind of vetting them and then getting them to fill out the investment questionnaire and send that to you with proof of funds and a pledge letter, is knowing what they're looking for, you know, and if money's going to cost you at 8%, and then you've got to yield to 16 if you want to make 8%. You know what I mean? And that's what we look for. You know, I don't mind paying somebody a 10, 12% return if the yield is phenomenal on the back end of either foreclosing and taking the asset back. We've got one where we were going to foreclose and the bar reinstated the loan. I was like, shit. Not what we wanted, but it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay after all. You know what I mean? It is what it is. So let's get into, let's go through the different exit strategies. We'll talk about kind of the windfall, or I'm sorry, the waterfall effect of which way you want to kind of go. And then we'll get into pricing on some of the stuff. And then we'll go into breaking down the tape. Any questions from those that were here yesterday and the day before you that I did not cover? Somebody asked me when the replays will be out. The replays will be out. If you're in the Zoom here, the replays will be out by probably Wednesday. So we'll have them up for you. If you've been some of the lucky ones catching some of the live stream on YouTube, kudos to you. You will not get a copy of the replays unless you've signed up for the class or we sent you the Zoom link. Okay. I'm glad you were learning and taking the opportunity, but you need this is a paid class, not a free class. Let's see here. Let me just pull up and see if we got any questions on there. Is this recorded and posted to your channel? It is recorded, but we will turn them at the end of the day. We'll private the videos. So TA, sorry, you may want to sign up at nobuyingfordummies.com to take advantage of getting everything. All right, let's go into this aspect of some things here for you. Let's go this route. Let's do this. This will be what I want to go through. Okay, here we go. Perfect. All right, with note investing, when you're buying a non-performing note, there's roughly about 10 different exit strategies you can take it. Now, that's going to vary by whether the property is occupied or if it's vacant. Obviously, it's vacant, and you're probably going to miss out on the opportunity to get the borrower back on track. That's not saying it hasn't happened, but most of the time when borrowers have moved out of a property, which I still to this day don't understand, they've moved out of the property because they thought they were getting foreclosed on, but they never actually did it. The bank never ever actually foreclosed. I mean, there's times we've walked into houses like, okay, these are great houses. I don't know, and we find that the borrower's living somewhere else paying rent. And I'm like, why are you doing that? You could have been living here for free, you know, taking care of the house. Okay. And so I like targeting owner occupied assets more so than vacant assets because it does give you the more flexibility. Also, it gives you more options. It's also more likely, obviously, to get the bar back on track, to start making payments for cash will come up. We also like that because the property is being taken care of. Somebody's living in it, keeping the heat on, keeping the power on. Vacant properties have a bad habit, especially the more rural they are, of the power being stripped, the air conditioner getting stolen, you know, that kind of stuff. If somebody's living it, they're usually taking care of it. Maybe not paying the taxes, maybe not paying the HOA. That's okay. But living in it keeps people, the grass mowed, it keeps somebody living in it, and that really will help you out in a lot of cases. But anyway, let's go through the different exit strategies because there's a variety of them. And we cover these. You know, it's all about when you buy something, what are you going to do with a note? Now, we're going to go through each one of these. and kind of walk you through the process of these. So definitely a valuable session here for you if you're kind of new to it. Now, obviously, you can wholesale notes just like you could real estate. So the thing about wholesaling notes is you actually end up making the least amount of money than you would than if you actually took it down and used the marketing to find a wholesaler to find actually private money for you. It's just a different mindset. It's like one little click and you can be raising capital versus just flipping it to make a point or two. And a lot of people want to get into wholesaling notes because I don't have any money. All right. I just want to make some quick cash. Well, that's great, but you're not really going to feed yourself long term. The energy, the marketing that goes into wholesaling is the same energy marketing going to raising capital. And I would rather you have you make cash flow or make a lion's share of the profit to actually get you out of a hole or make more money. Okay. Now you can wholesale pools, you can wholesale individual assets. You can charge a flat fee. Some people will do like, oh, I'm going to charge a flat $500 per asset, or I'm going to charge like a percentage point, 1 to 3 points, whatever's less. Okay. Wholesaling a performing note, it's about a 1 point fee. So if they buy it at 100 grand, then you're making a 1 point is 1,000. Non-performing, it's kind of normal to get a 2 to 3 points or maybe a flat fee, depending on how big of a discount you can get. Now, like our wholesaling fees, when we wholesale stuff, it's usually we've done really well to average 10% or greater on a lot of stuff. Like my biggest wholesaling fee was 150 grand on a 16-unit apartment complex in LA that we wholesaled the note from Capital One to somebody else. Off that list I guys showed you on Friday afternoon. Okay, bank didn't care because they never knew. You're not going to want to tell the bank too that you're wholesaling notes. They will not want to deal with you. They want to deal with direct buyers. Okay. So knowing what the deal can hold is important. And this is why I tell people, learn what the value of the asset is. Learn what's the exit strategies. Where's the profit potential for this and sell the profit potential. Trying just to slap spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks is not an effective marketing plan. I'm sorry, but that's what a lot of people do. They go out and just slap stuff against the wall to see what fits. And you can't do that. You got to understand, hey, this is the deal. Let me give you an example. One of my buddies, Robbie Woods, who was actually once a distressed borrower that we forgave his loan, did a deed in lieu. He actually ended up buying that note back from us. Anyway, he came across a note down in Lehigh Acres, Florida. And I used to buy a lot down in the Southwest Florida area. And he knew it. And somehow I missed this deal from the direct seller that was selling it. I was like, oh, and he reached out to me and said, hey, I know that you like this area. Have you seen this note? I'm like, no, I have not. I said, oh, that's awesome. Congrats as well. Are you interested in buying it? I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely interested in buying it. It was like the asset was worth, I don't know, 95 to 100. Southwest Florida took a big hit. I mean, like 60, 70% reduction in value. Borrower owed like 150, 200. Okay. And it dropped down quite a bit, but it's still worth 100, 110, if I remember correctly. And Robbie's like, well, I've got it under contract for 45. I would take a 5K wholesale fee. And I'm like, you know what? I'll do that. I don't mind paying you $5 grand. It's my mistake for missing it out in this one, not following up with that seller. And it still leaves plenty of meat on the bone for me. All right. So that's what we did. I paid 50 for it. 45 went to Bill by Mail. 5 grand went to Robbie. Bill by Mail knew that Robbie was flipping it and he was fine with that because he probably bought it cheaper than 45. And so it was a win-win. Robbie knew the deal. If I didn't want to pay the 5 grand, he probably would have bought the note, finished the note purchase himself, and done the foreclosure and did some other things. But he was glad 5 grand to him in a week was much worth more than the 45 over 90 days or whatever. Okay. Our buddy Cedric here, he came across this mobile home park a few years back. It's not the biggest mobile home. I think there's 25 pads on this thing, 30 pads on it. And, they weren't quite as popular as they are now. So he came across this, I think it was from Palmetto Bank, actually out of South Carolina. Remember the homes, those mobile home parks out of South Carolina. And Cedric here lives up in Chicago. Okay. He doesn't want to own a mobile home park. He's working a full-time job, right? Full-time job, doesn't have time to manage something like that, but he wants to make some money. So he was able to negotiate this down to $85,000. The bank just wanted it off his portfolio. So he starts marketing on Craigslist and to other real estate groups. He got a buyer to come in and pay him a $15,000 wholesale fee. What did he do? Basically, he had a contract from the bank to him, and he didn't know this guy, so he did a double contract. And there's two ways to kind of structure this aspect. You can do a double, kind of like a double close. So that's what he did. So basically, contract from him to Cedric, and then Cedric made the contract from him to the buyer. Now, what he did is just change basically a couple things. He changed the sales price from 85 to 100, changed the close date so it's 2 days sooner than what Cedric had to close. Okay. Now, and the wire instructions, same thing. He set up an escrow account. He actually called me. How do I do this? I said, call your local attorney, tell him you need just an escrow account. We're just making wire funds in, then you wire the money out. You'll probably got to pay $500 for it. He's like, that's still a pretty good deal for me making 15. Like, yeah, just get it done. So that's what he did. He provided all the due diligence files to the guy. His buyer was happy and wired 100 grand in. Cedric turned around and wired the 85 to the bank, kept the 15. He held that 15 in escrow, making sure that the bank then sent the assignment of mortgage, which is what they did, the bill of sale. When he got the assignment of mortgage from the bank, it was made out from the bank to him. He had to create a second assignment of mortgage from him to the seller. Now, he tried to get the bank to leave it as a blank assignment so that all he had to do was fill it out for his end buyer. But the bank wouldn't do that. The bank's like, no, we have to fill out the assignment based on what's stated on the contract, which you'll run into from time to time. Now, when you buy in bulk, a lot of times, they'll just send over blank assignments, from them to blank, and you got to fill that in, which is kind of nice. It's not a big deal. Cedric basically sent over 2 assignments, 2 allonges to the seller, and the seller had to go file both of those assignments at the county to transfer the ownership. But it was a win-win. I mean, he ended up netting 14.5. That was basically that's about 2 months, 3 months of income to Cedric. And the guy that bought the mobile home park probably, I don't know, owned it for a couple of years for cash flow. He was down in the South Carolinas, I remember. So wholesaling can be done. Just don't tell the bank you're looking to wholesale flip notes. Don't let that coming from an inexperience level or fear level stop you from actually making real money. Okay. Cedric initially was going to just try to flip this for $1,000 or $2,000. I was like, no. I was like, dude, you've got a deal here. Let's look at this deal. I think it was worth 150 or 200 based on the cash flow basis to get still a double-digit cap rate. I said, look, you could get this up to 100. Take your 15. Don't be so needy. So needy to just get $1,000 right now. Let's work this. You've got 40 days to close this or 45 days to close this. And that's the great thing about commercial notes. Commercial notes, the banks will give you 90 days to close in some cases. Now, if the property is going to foreclosure in 2 weeks, they're not going to give you 90 days. They're probably not going to even think about a note sale because they've already done most of the heavy lifting. Now, if it's in a state that has a longer foreclosure process, they might be willing to give you 90 days. I've gotten 6 months, as much as 6 months to buy a commercial note before, but normally I'll ask for 90 days. Okay. In a commercial note, they're going to ask you to fill out a letter of intent, which is there's a sample one in the manual that I'll send over to you, go through later for you. But wholesale notes, it can be done. We get a portfolio, and honestly, ladies and gentlemen, when you get a bank list in and there's nothing on it that you want to buy, don't let that just stop you from doing anything with it. Reach out to me. If I know somebody who's buying, I'll gladly make the introduction for you. All right. Call this guy, call this gal, they're buying. You make $1,000 or, $1,000 is better than nothing. And that's what happens a lot of time. And that's the whole reason that we started going across the country was to learn the different markets and connect with other people. We've got a huge network, ladies and gentlemen. That's part of the reason why we always talk about the marketing aspect of things. Posting on videos, posting deals that you're working on. All right. Because you never know who's going to see it. I posted a deal about that Topeka asset online. We had 4 people reach out to me to buy it. Okay. I posted one on Freeport. We had 3 people reach out to me about it. Just random people I've never met before, but they follow or saw my videos and how we coded it. It turned into buyers for us. So that's one of the most valuable things is that, like I said before, everybody's a buyer, a seller, or a funding source. Okay. Cedric is still doing real estate. I don't know what he's doing. I think he got sick, if I remember correctly. But anyway, something to keep on. Moving on. Now, when you buy a note, obviously it's going to be with a servicing company. You want to have a servicing company. There should be one already on file that's servicing the loan. When you when the loan gets transferred after buying 2 weeks. And here's the process: when you buy a note from a bank, it's not immediately transferred. Yes, you'll get the assignment of mortgage, and you got to go file that at the county to transfer ownership. Servicing takes a little while. Servicing usually takes about 30 days transfer, sometimes as fast as 2 weeks, because here's what has to happen. The seller is going to send out a goodbye letter. Hey, Lionel, thanks for not paying us. You can now not pay Forrest, right? And your servicing company, if you're doing a different company, is going to send out a letter and say, hey, thanks for not paying ABC servicing, but now you got to pay us. And your loan's been sold, and it's no longer Lionel, it's Forrest that owns the note now. Okay, that's called a hello letter. All right. Now, if you're dealing with the same servicing company, yes, there's the same. It's a hello letter goes out and a goodbye letter goes out, but you're just basically saying it's still with us, but this is who owns your loan now. The reason it's got to take at least 2 weeks is because the seller and the seller's servicing company have to get the borrower time for a letter to get out and for them to call and ask any questions. Okay. Now, some servicing companies will do this just once a month. Some will do it every 2 weeks. It varies on the servicing companies. All servicing companies really suck at some point of what they do. Okay. They work for you. You've got to kind of stay on it. This is why you look at your portfolio with them. If you've got one note, you check with them once a month just to take. And sometimes if it's a performing note, you just check your statements, make sure you're getting paid. Okay. But if you start adding more non-performing stuff, it's good to pick up the phone or schedule an appointment with your servicing company's asset manager, whoever's been assigned to your account. Okay. And when you buy a note, the first thing that bank or that lender wants to do, that servicing company wants to do, is try to get to reinstate the loan. They're going to first try to reach out and make right party contact. You'll see RPC made. RPC stands for right party contact. That means they was able to get somebody on the phone, email, borrower called inbound call, or they called them at work or something. Now, part of what we do on the due diligence side is that we're looking at social media, sleuthing. We'll try to find skip tracing. So we'll provide that information, whatever we found, to the servicing company to try to help expedite that. Names of their employer, social media, emails, that kind of stuff. Okay. And to get the borrower to reinstate the loan, oftentimes, okay, hey, can you start paying the existing payment? That's the first question I ask. Can you start paying the existing payment? And then can you pay anything extra to get caught back up? All right. And that's the first thing. Reinstate a loan. What happened during COVID? People stopped paying and banks deferred back payments. So we'll give you 12 months of deferment. We'll just take the 12 months and put it on the back end of the loan. Obviously, getting it to work better for you is if they're not paying is when the payment is less than what market rent is. That's most of the places across there now. It used not to be that case. But that's one thing to keep in mind. I guarantee you, people that are facing difficulties in paying their mortgage are looking at what market rents are. They're getting scared. Oh, I'm going to have to move in with my mom, right? And one of the things that we always do is like, what's the rent rate? Like, listen, if you were going to move out of your house and move into an apartment, you're going to have to come up with, a month's rent, deposit, moving costs, new utility expenses, because I guarantee your credit's probably shot. So you got to put down deposits now. Instead of you going and spending that $2,000 to $4,000, let's put it towards your back payments. Let's get you back on track. Okay. You got to bring some skin in the game to reinstate the loan. I don't let people reinstate just to start reinstating, because if they do that and can't pay anything, then they're guaranteed about 90% of the time they're going to hiccup later on in the first 6 months, and then you're going to be back at this thing again. The only time I've let people stay without making some sort of skin in the game is when I bought the asset so cheap and I didn't want to own it. Okay. I bought this note. It was part of a bulk portfolio of Florida loans we bought. This lady was in Jacksonville. Elderly lady in a wheelchair. It was a small little, like, 2-bedroom house. I mean, really small, less than 1,000 square feet. And I just made a deal with her. I said, listen, I said, listen, don't make your mortgage payment. We're not going to foreclose on you. You can stay here as long as you want. Just, can you pay the taxes? And she was on a fixed income. She's like, yes, I can pay the taxes. I'm like, okay, you take care of the taxes. We'll take care of the insurance. We'll take care of, you won't have to make a monthly payment. I mean, she was elderly. I mean, she lived in the house for another 2 years. But I didn't want to own it. And then she passed away. And what we had was basically a deed in lieu of escrow. She didn't have any heirs. I said, listen, you owe more than the property's worth. Let's just make this simple. You stay, take care of everything. I know you're in a fixed income. So instead of you having to pay the $500 per month, don't pay that. You just keep that towards the taxes and other things living. We'll have you sign a deed in lieu so that when you do pass, that we don't have to go through the long foreclosure process. You can stay here rent free. And she's like, "Are you serious?" And she was very happy. It was a win-win, right? It worked out really, really well for her. Worked out well for us too, trying to help some people. There's another lady. It was in Cleveland. It was a single mom of four, and she owed, when we bought this note too. I think my cost base was like $1,000. All right, for this note, it's portfolio. Not in a great area of Cleveland. Lady was nice, but she just couldn't afford anything because she had four kids. And so what I did is I just called her up. Uh, I didn't really want to own it. I called her up. I think it was December 20th. I got her on the phone, and you could tell she was just stressing. And I said, "Listen," it was like Vi, I think was her name. I said, "Listen, Vi, I see these," because I had, when you're buying us, you get the collateral files and the hardship letters and all stuff. And I can see your hardship letters in there. Single mom of four, trying to go to school, trying to do better on a fixed income, wasn't getting any child support from the fathers. I said, "I'm going to make you a deal." She's like, "What does that mean?" I said, "I'll tell you what, you owe like 25 grand and some change on this thing. Look, Merry Christmas. I'm just going to forgive your debt. I'm just going to send a forgiveness of debt. I'm not going to 1099 you, which is what I should have done, is 1099 her, and she should have paid taxes on that forgiveness, but I'm not going to do that to her. My cost base was $1,000. I'll write that off. I can write that off because that's what I paid for it and some other expenses along the way. But I just forgave her the debt. I was like, "Listen, I know it's hard for you to get back on track. You're behind. Look, I'm just going to make a deal for you. Merry Christmas. Make sure your kids have a good Christmas." And that woman started crying on the phone immediately. Now, would I do that all the time? No, I don't do that all the time. I'll do it sometimes. I did it because it was a portfolio. Basically, the note was free for me. And why not have a little Christmas cheer and help some people? I make plenty of money off of other things. And that was the one time I was like, "Listen, I don't really want this. Let's just do the right thing." They do. We like to help people. I'll tell you this: the further you're along in something, the better you get at something, the rarer the air is. Okay. And look, life is not perfect by any means the imagination. We have ups and downs, just like anybody else. We have deals that go south. We have deals that go well. We just keep doing the right thing, keep moving forward. If you've got a bad deal that goes south, guess what? Go do another deal to make up for it. That's what you have to do. That's one of the most important things. But reinstating a loan, I mean, here's another great example. This is a note outside of Charlotte. My friends Jamie and Laney Harrington, great people. They live down in Myrtle Beach, but they used to live just outside of Charlotte in this little small town called Taylorsville, just north of Hickory, North Carolina. And we were working. They were one-on-one coaching students, and we came across this tape from a hedge fund that had this note just outside Charlotte, this little condo note. And the balance on it was about $50,000 balance. The value of the property was probably about 45 at the time. The borrower that lived in it was occupied, but hadn't paid in 2+ years. Now the fund, this was their bottom of the barrel. This was their tail end of a trade. And I told Jamie, I said, "Listen, if you want to make an offer, let's make an offer like 4 or 5. And she's like, 4 or 5 grand? I'm like, "Yeah." "Oh, no, I don't think they'll accept it." I said, "Trust me, they'll probably accept it." But no, she made an offer at 17.5. She made an offer at 50 cents of what was owed, basically, or just below what was owed. And they accepted it. And I went back and talked to Sal, who was the trader. And I said, "Sal, what would you have accepted?" He goes, "Well, I would have probably accepted 4 or 5. I'm like, shit. But Jamie liked this asset. It wasn't in the greatest part of Charlotte, she said, but she sent her brother Preston by. Preston came by. It was actually really nice. It was a good apartment complex. So she funded at 17.5. She used her Roth IRA. Okay. And so Preston went and knocked on the door a week later after she bought it, and the guy answered the door at the bar. Well, he's a big, tall guy, like 6'4", big guy. And Preston's this little, like 5'6", little kind of skinny guy. And so Preston's looking up this guy, and Preston's telling him like who he represents. And the guy says, "Oh, yeah. I got the letter." Says, he opened the door, said, "I've done all this work here." I said, "I just got hired on a new contract. I just got 5 grand sign-on contract. If I give you 4 of that, and then I start making payments now that I'm rehired back with it, you allow me to stay here?" And Preston said, "I think so." And Jamie said, "Heck yeah." So that's what happened. The guy paid $4,000 towards back payment, started paying the monthly payment of like $550 a month. You know, you ain't got to be a rocket scientist to figure out that's a pretty phenomenal deal if you paid $17,500 for the deal, right? Basically, she got almost 100% return on her money back in the first year. But 8 months into the deal, the guy showed up at her office because she had this mortgage CPA office just about an hour north, and walked in and told Jamie, said, "Listen, Jamie, I'm moving to California. I got another job out there. You know, I wanted to call you because you were so nice to let me stay in there. I just, can I just give you the property back? I can't afford to pay it anymore." And she's like, "Yeah, sure. You can just deed it over to me." Friendly foreclosure. And she goes, "You sure you don't want to try to sell it?" He's no, it's, I think it's worth more than what I owe, but after taxes and time, I just as soon be done with it. So that's what they did. He deeded the property over to her. She held it as a rental in her IRA at $800 and $900 a month for 4 more years before she sold it. So, it was a good opportunity to reinstate the loan. And the bar, she would have been willing to modify it after 12 months. She even said that to the guys, "Listen, you paid on time for almost a year. Do you want to try to do some stuff?" And he's like, no, I just want to walk away. But reinstating the loan, that's the whole goal, is get them to start paying on time. Because after 12 months of on-time payments, we all know what that means. It means the loan is now classified as reperforming. Okay. Now, if they can't reinstate the loan, then the next thing to do is to think about some sort of like modification or trial payment plan. Like I talked about earlier, you could do a variety of things: reducing principal, reducing interest rate, forgiving past due payments, deferring payments to the back end loan, getting some down and some every month. You can adjust the rate, make it a stair-step rate, 2% 1 year, 3% next year, 4%. You get pretty creative. There are some state and federal programs to help keep people in their houses. Catherine, Bell, and Laura Miller they bought a note in Ohio, and the bar was able to get like 40, 50 grand to come in and not pay off, but pay off a lot of their back payments and put money towards the face amount of the loan. Okay. Like I said before, you don't want to modify immediately. You want to set up some sort of trial payment plan before you modify the loan, just because you can't go back. And it's the same thing. If you modify the loan and the bar misses the first 2 or 3 payments and you go to effect foreclose, if you forgave debt, you can't go back after what you forgave. Like if they owed 120 and you drop it down to 75, guess what? You can only foreclose on for 75, not the full 120. This is a property out of South Beloit, Illinois. Oh my gosh, this was I've talked about this story before a few times, but they were a couple that lived in the house with their 3 daughters. They lived there for 18 years. The house had depreciated about 70 grand. They had refinanced and pulled a little equity out. And then what happened? Market crashed. And this loan had bounced around like for 4 years on a tape that some big fund bought, and they're trying to sell it off, and finally got down where I saw it. And I saw this note, and I'm like, okay, so the house is worth about 35. They owe about 60 to 70, depending on late payments and stuff like that. And I was like, man, it's occupied. It's not that big a deal. What's going on? And I made an offer at 12 and the bank accepted it. So when I get the collateral file and all the servicing notes, this file was thick. Sheila, that's what her name is, Sheila and William Drummond. And Sheila had been sending in like letters, hardship letters, trying to get the loan modified. And what happened is her husband had a heart attack, not died, but was out of work for a while, for a year. And that's kind of what set the whole ball and, snowball effect of not being able to caught up and not being able to pay. They couldn't, and every time that portfolio was sold, their loan was sold, the lender wanted to bring the full 2-3 years to the table, and they couldn't do that. Okay. Couldn't bring their payment was only like $445 a month, but they couldn't bring, $9 grand to the table. It just didn't have that extra cash. So when I was looking through it, I see that this lady's like, we just want to try to stay. We'd love to modify the loan, but we can't afford to bring 3 or 4 years to the table, but we bring a little bit of money. And so I was like, okay, when they told me 12, I was like, great, let's go. So I can remember this is one phone call I made. I didn't give it to the servicing company. I don't highly recommend you make phone calls unless you've got somebody trained on your staff to do that. So I remember calling Sheila and getting her on the phone. And I said, well, hi, this is Scott Carson. You probably got a letter in the last 2 weeks saying that your loan's been sold. She's like, yeah, it's been sold again. I was like, listen, I can see from the payment, from your, from the servicing history, you've been trying to do some stuff. Can you go back and tell me what happened again, just for the heck of it? So she went in, he was, worked They raised their three daughters in there. They had one that was starting to expect. Was, I guess, just found they were pregnant. So they were all stressed about stuff. And I was like, listen, tell you what, I know you can't bring the 2 years or 3 years to the table. I get it. Not worried about that. Can you bring anything to the table? Can you bring a year of payments? No. I said, can you bring $5,000 to the table? She's like, no. I said, can you bring 2,500 to the table? She's like, I can bring 2,500 to the table. I was like, okay, great. That's a start. Can you pay your existing $445 or $450 a month? She's like, yes, I can. Can you pay anything extra on top of it, like 250, 200? She's like, yeah, I could do that if I don't have to bring the $5,000. If I, I said, okay, then this is what I want you to do. I want you to bring 2,500 to the table. Then I want next month you make your normal payment plus 200, 250. Pay that. And then this is what I'm going to do for you, Sheila. At the end of the year, 12 months of on-time payments, what I'm going to do is we're going to reduce your balance from whatever it is at that point down to the market value of the house. So whatever we pull as far as comps, we're going to reduce the balance from there. So we may forgive you take it from 70 down to 35, or if it's 40, take it to 40. Okay, we're going to forgive you. And she's like, oh my God, that's awesome. So we're going to do something better for you. I get being in a troubled time and going through issues, stuff like that. What we're going to do, you pay on time for 12 months. Besides forgiving some debt, I'm going to reduce your 12% interest rate down to 0%. And she's like, what? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to reduce it to 0%. But I want you to keep making your existing mortgage payment of $450. But you don't have to pay anything extra after a year, but pay that $450. So 100% of it goes to principal and interest reduction. And this way you'll have your house now paid off in 7 years versus 30 years. And she's like, are you serious? Is this too good to be true? Am I getting punked? I'm like, no. You don't have to send me anything. What I want you to do is you're going to go to my attorney. Can you drive up to, I think we had one in Chicago. I think there was another attorney. He said, if you go up to the attorney there and meet in their office, they'll have the stuff for you. And they bring a cashier's check. So that's what they did. She was all surprised. Her and William drove up there, met with my attorney. They had a $25 cashier's check. They signed on the trial payment plan with the agreement in place. They both broke down in tears at the attorney's office, I found out. And especially one, he was crying, couldn't believe it. He had all this guilt on his shoulders of his heart attack causing a lot of this despair. And when I told him, I was like, listen, I get it. Bad things happen to good people all the time. It's not your fault the market crashed. I'm not holding you responsible for it. It's not your fault you had a heart attack. I get it. But let's get you back on track. And 6 months go by, and I tell you, that lady called me. I'm like, no, you don't got to call me. You call the servicer. That's who I want you to deal with. Called me anytime that mortgage payment was. She thought it was going to be late by a day or something. I was like, no, we're just going and take care of it. Well, she did her 12 months, and then we refined. We did the whole modification. But I got a Christmas card 6 months after we did this, and it was a Christmas card. I was like, who's this from? I didn't recognize it, and it was they had a family photo. Sheila and William and their three daughters and their new granddaughter who was just born. Well, they named the granddaughter Carson after me for helping them all stay in that house. And I still get tickled to this day about helping people like that. And that's a great thing. Now, look, did I make some money on the deal? Yes, I made some money. Okay. If you look at it, she basically paid $2,500 down, $200 a month for another 12 months. That's another 24. So that's $4,900. Okay. She paid $450 a month for 12 months. I made back what I paid for the loan at $12,000 in my first year. Okay. And then I got another $445 on that for another 6 years, 72 months. Okay. It was a good win-win. She never defaulted. I don't know what's happened to them since, but I know that they paid them off, and I got a nice email from them when they paid off. And that's the good thing. We make good money and we help people. If people want help, we can help them do that. I like helping people like that. I don't like helping the people that haven't made their mortgage payment in 4 years and delayed. You'll deal with that scum of the earth as well. But this was not scum of the earth. This is just something, bad happened. And the crazy thing is I really just read what she wanted to do in the hardship letter. She wanted to make her existing payment. She couldn't bring the $5,000, whatever. The 3 lenders or the 4 lenders that owned this before me could have done the same exact thing, but they didn't. They were all bigger institutions. And for them, they just value this asset because it was below 100. They basically gave it a zero value. They didn't want to waste their time. It wasn't worth their time to do this. And that's the beauty of this business, ladies and gentlemen, This crumb, this is technically kind of like a crumb. You can make great money on this. I mean, think about this. If you're trying to wholesale something like this and you're going to make $500, okay. And yes, I use my own money on this, but I could have really used somebody else's 15 grand to buy the note, put a little money in, done the same thing, and it still would have been a good day. You know what I mean, ladies and gentlemen? Anyway, we get to be bankers with a heart, and yes, create legacies. Exactly. We try to. Some people don't want to be helped. I've had people cussing me out in the phone. I'm like, listen, I get it, you're stressed, but I'm here trying to help you. Okay. You're not going to, if you want to stay, you got to pay something. We got to figure something out here because I don't run a charity. All right. And when you don't pay, you're taking, food off my table. You're not, Obama's not going to save you. Uncle Joe's not going to save you. Trump is not going to save you. You have to be responsible for where you're at and what's going on. And that's sometimes you have to have a hard conversation. Like, listen, if you can't pay anything, you can't stay. We got to figure something else out, for the most part. Of course, it all depends on what you want to do. Okay. Of course, what did I do? Did I write off the debt? Yeah, I wrote off the debt, reduced. I only paid 12 grand for it. I was able to basically say that I forgave the debt and it was a wash. Okay. Now, if a borrower can't pay and you don't necessarily want to own it, you can allow them to have somebody come in and assume the loan. Loan assumptions, there is a possibility. Most people forget about that. VA loans have always been assumable. They stopped letting most of the other loans be assumable in 85. They have the whole due on sale clause. Like, I'm the bank. I don't give a rat's ass about due on sale clause. As long as I'm getting payments in, we're trying to help some people. Don't call me a teddy bear. I can be a real asshole too. Somebody wants to screw around. I'm like, listen, you're not going to win this. My middle initial is A. Okay, not for assumption. But anyway, if somebody's got a family member, this is something that we work out every once in a while too. Swapping one borrower out for another. You got a borrower who can't pay, who's unhappy. You got somebody that comes in. Maybe it's an investor. We've let some investors take over some assumptions, take over subject to the existing financing on some more non-performing notes before. Okay. When the borrower was wanting to get out, doesn't want to foreclose. We basically have the existing borrower fill out a 1003, a loan application, get their information so that they become responsible. And it's a good win-win, because then the borrower's either, like, if it's a family member borrower staying and somebody's taking a loan, or maybe it's a relative moves in, or a friend wants to buy the house and they can get into it without having to go get the things. Now, we're not originating a new loan. That's what I'm saying. I had somebody that wanted to take over a loan. They wanted to originate a new loan. It's like, no, we're not originating a new loan. You're taking over as is. Okay. If they don't have somebody that can come in and take over payments like a loan assumption, then we go the route of a short sale. Okay. If they want to try to sell it, we call it kind of short papering, because the mortgage note, we're taking a short on, technically. All right. If they owed 150 as their legal balance, and we agreed to let them sell the house at a sales price of 100, we're technically shorting it by 50K, but we probably bought the note below 100 grand. Okay. So let me give you an example. It's basically, you're buying the note and becoming the bank. Obviously, the borrower either already has the house listed with a realtor, or we turn around and list it with a realtor. Now, this isn't going to work very well if there's a second mortgage on the property. Second mortgages can be the biggest pain in the ass. They don't want to take a discount. And so I'm like telling them, well, either you can, this is where we bought some second mortgages for $1,015 because that's all it takes basically to foreclose. I'm like, listen, I'll give you $1,000 to go away. Otherwise, you're not going to get anything at the foreclosure auction. And it usually works pretty well. But we're basically, being the bank, we can determine the short of the deal. The house is sold below the unpaid principal balance, or the legal balance usually. But it's sold at, the final numbers are sold at above what you paid for the note. So if there is no realtor currently on the listing or on the property, you hire the realtor. It's, I don't mind if the property owners have a realtor, but the realtor needs to be familiar with short sales. And there's some things that we have to have the realtor do to make sure. The first one is that they don't list the property more than 85% of fair market value. So let's give some examples. So let's say the house, they owe 150's payoff balance. The house is maybe worth 100. I'm going to tell them to list it at 85, not 100 or 150 or whatever. listed at 85 because we want to give some sort of motivation to people looking at the houses that they're willing to stay around for a little bit. Now, I can do a short sale in 7 days if I own the note. I can do it fast. We're the fastest negotiation company for our own stuff, right? The numbers make sense. Boom, approved. Let's get it closed. Other people understand that or deal with the fact that it can take 30 to 90 days or longer for a short sale to take place. Okay. So we tell them to list it at 85%. And then also, too, it can't be around the borrower schedule. They've got to be willing and able to show this house at any time. Okay. None of this waiting until 7 to 9 p.m. on every other Tuesday. No. If we're not getting foot traffic in the first 2 weeks, then we're getting rid of the short sale and moving on to something else. Okay. So let me give you an example. This is in Austin, Texas, 9016 Collinfield Drive. This is, you don't usually see a 3-bay car garage. This is on the north side of Austin, but south of where I live. It's a corner lot. Nice red brick house. Borrowers had just replaced the roof, all new appliances, and then the bar, and then it passed away. So it was actually in probate. So the bank, which was Wells Fargo back in the day, was owed over $195,000. The $195,000 was the unpaid balance. I think the legal was like at $220,000. Remember, so $25,000 in back payments, and been sitting literally listed for short sale for about a year and a half. Okay, the home as it sat was worth $150,000. Okay, a little bit of upgrades, but $150,000 is where it sat at. Now the house is worth $450,000 plus, right? So we bought the note for $75,000. Now here's the thing: when we were looking at the foreclosure list each month, we saw this pop up with Wells Fargo Financial. Now, I had an asset manager who worked for Wells Fargo Financial who we bought notes for. Okay. So I got my realtor. I said, let's pull this up. So we pulled it up. We were able to go take a look at it. We were actually able to walk the property in and out because it was listed for sale. I had my realtor call the listing agent and said, hey, I see this listed for short sale. It's been around for a while. What's going on? And that's when the realtor told us it'd been going on probate, but they had a solid cash buyer. And my realtor's like, are you sure you don't need another backup offer? Just as a pledge. No, we have a very strong cash offering. And my realtor was able to determine it was somewhere, above 130 was the cash offering. So I was like, okay, so we got a cash offering sitting out there. Wells Fargo, and here's the thing, the short sale department doesn't talk to the special assets department in a lot of these cases. All right. They just don't talk. And especially it's been sitting out for a while, for a year or 2 years. They're often willing to sell the note because they'd rather get that money in. So when I called the asset manager, his name is Steve Smith, actually. And I say, hey, Steve, Scott Carsing, we're, shoot the breeze. I say, hey, man, I see that you guys are foreclosing or trying to foreclose on this property. Has been on the market for over 2 years. It's in probate. It's been stuck up in probate here. Here's the address. I think this is the loan number. Would you guys be willing to sell the loan? So he looked at it, came back. Yeah, I think we'd be. I said, well, would you take 25? He was like, no, I can't take 25 for it. I said, well, would you take 75 for it? He goes, yeah, I think we would take 75. So he called me back the next day. Said, yeah, we'd take 75 for it. I was like, yes. So then I went and talked to my private investor, Aubrey, here in town, had him come up with my realtor. We pulled comps. We pulled the email saying that, the realtor said had a solid offering somewhere in the 135 range. So let's buy the note and we'll go that route. And Aubrey's like, yeah, and I've done a lot of deals with Aubrey before. Okay. So we put it in a special LLC that Aubrey used with me on these deals. We bought it at $75K. We then funded on the deal. I called the realtor the next day and informed her that, hey, we had just bought the note. She's like, crap. I was like, no, you're good. I know you've been working on this. Probate's almost done on this thing because she told us that probate was basically finished going through all that stuff. I said, listen, we're just going to keep it in place. It's not a big deal. Can you send me over the estimated HUD on that deal on the buyer and what you expect? And she did that. She sent it over to us. I was like, let's get this thing closed. So we approved the sale at 150. After closing costs and stuff like that, we netted about 135. Okay. And the beautiful thing about this, if we paid 75 for it and we netted 135 after closing costs and commission and stuff like that, we made $60K profit in roughly about 30 days. Pretty good deal for us. It was a great deal for Aubrey, who's pretty excited because he made 30K and 75K. And like, I would do that with just somebody who only had 75K. Aubrey and I had done a lot of work. I mean, he'd invested, I don't know, $500,000 or more with us. So we had a special agreement where we split these on that. But still, if you gave somebody 1 year of interest on 75K and gave them 7K and you made 50K, would that be a good deal? Yeah, it's a good deal all around. So that's a beautiful thing. If we couldn't, and when we buy notes and we can't get them to reinstate or modify or assume or do a short sale, then we go the deed in lieu cash for keys. If there's especially no liens on the property, we'll do cash for keys, deed in lieu. If there is a second lien or other outstanding liens, then we'll do a consent to judgment. Okay. But in a deed in lieu, it's a friendly foreclosure. Basically, the borrower gives the home back to the bank. We'll sometimes give them cash to walk away. Usually our cash for keys is around $5,000. The little is $500. We've done as much as 10 grand before. But what we do is we'll deduct some things. If they want 10 grand, okay, you owe $4,000 in back taxes. We'll give you 6. Okay. Or we know it's going to cost us probably $6,000 to foreclose. That's what we're going to go. We'll pay a little bit more, but if the property's got to be in good condition, we're basically forgiving the debt. And yes, we will 1099 them for the lost debt. Now, if they are insolvent, which they probably are, they just can write that off with a form, was IRS form 928, I believe. Okay. But basically, the moment they sign the property over to us, it becomes a REO. You've got to make sure, especially if it forecloses or you get a deal, that you then, what I would do if you're using other people's money to fund these deals, that you go and slap a lien on the property, protecting that equity. If there's a second, you do consent to judgment, they still will sign it, give them cash for the consent. You're not going after them for the money. It's just something to present to the judge that the borrower is willing to work with you. They're agreeing to the judgment so that you can expedite the foreclosure of the second. You, being the bank, can do whatever the heck you want. Sell it, rent it, owner finance it, whatever you want to do with the property. You're letting the borrower basically walks away scot-free to start all over. And we're not going after them for a judgment. We're not, we won't put new late pays in their credit. We're not going to try to ruin them. We actually want to try to help them because I'm saying cash for keys. We won't report these late fees. And, that way when you, in 24 months or less, when you show no late fees on your credit, you can get your feet back on track and go buy a new home. Okay. Tony Walker here, he's a investor, actually a Canadian investor who he's a pilot for American Airlines. He moved down to Florida. He bought this condo note from us. It was worth about 100. We paid 30 for it. He bought it from us at 60. Was able to negotiate with the seller to do a consent for judgment. Now there was a $11,000 or $12,000 HOA lien on the property, but the property was in clean condition. Borrower lived in San Francisco or California, and was able to negotiate with the HOA to go ahead and pay them their 1% of the original sales price. Now, the original sales price was, I think, was $150. So he paid them $1,500 to wipe out that $11,000 condo lien, because in Florida, there's a safe harbor law. If you go to foreclose, you buy the debt and you foreclose, the HOA is only due 1% of original sales price or 1 year of HOA fees. And, was able to negotiate with the borrower, was able to negotiate with the HOA, got them to agree so that he didn't have to wait a year and take it through the whole foreclosure process. So it turned out really good for him. He made some money and rocked and rolled on it. Of course, if they can't pay or they do have some money, you can often try to get a cash payoff. This is where the borrower pays off the loan. All right. Literally, they pay off the loan. You can do structured payments like over a period of time, like 90 days is what we try to do. Or you can do like a reduced settlement, like, okay, bring 70 grand to the table and we'll forgive you. Whatever. Or, go get a hard money loan and finance. You're going to have a hard time getting a hard money loan on like an owner occupant. So those are some things you got to know. We had one where it was the son of the borrower. The borrower has passed away. And he was able to go get a private investor to come in and pay 100 grand on a $150,000 debt to pay, basically do a cash out. Now the property needs some work, need updating. I was like, okay, you want to pay this the 100 grand instead of us foreclosing on it? That's fine. Let's just go ahead and do that. We'll take that. Okay. Your lower balances obviously have a high hit rate, like contract for deeds. We can often get a cash payoff on those. We've even done this before where we called the borrowers on assets. And said, listen, hey, if you'll pay us off, we'll give you a 10% discount. We'll give you 10% off your loan. You owe 50 grand. If you want to do a cash payoff, we'll let it go for 45. All right. We've done that before. And it's kind of worked in some cases. We even did that on a couple of notes that we bought cheap, where the sellers couldn't find the collateral files. The collateral files were missing, and the borrowers have been making payments, but there were lower balances. So we actually went out and offered, hey, we'll give you a 20% discount if you want to do a payoff. And so they were like, oh yeah. So we're like, whoo, good. Good thing we didn't have to foreclose. Leslie, she bought this one in Tennessee. And it was funny. She sent a door knocker to knock on the door because the bar hadn't paid in a few months. And in Tennessee, it's about 120 days to foreclose. It's a fast, non-judicial foreclosure. Well, the wife answered the door. Wife didn't know anything about this property going to foreclosures. And so she's like, well, somebody will be in contact with you in the next 24 to 48 hours. So next day, her attorney gets a phone call from the borrower getting a payoff amount. And then 6 days later, a cashier's checkup shows up for the full payoff amount. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall there. That's the thing to keep in mind. If they aren't sharing their information about it, you never know. Now, the mailing address originally had been gone to a P.O. box, different than the house address. So that's why we sent the door knocker out to the physical address, because we figured they're still living there, but mail was just going to a different spot. And that'll happen. We'll get cash payoffs from time to time. It's not a bad day. It's actually a pretty good day most of the time. Of course, we talked about reselling the note. If you buy a note and it's in a longer foreclosure state, or the borrower's a pain in the ass, it's non-performing or performing, you can resell the note. Semi-performing, hit and miss. Maybe they're making a payment 30 days late every time, like a rolling 30. If you've bought that asset cheap enough and you know which route it's going, or you know the story behind the story, like it's going to be a longer foreclosure process. I just don't have the time, but the value's there. Then you've added value by working, trying to work out the note or servicing the note, and sell it and make a profit. William Bonatti, he is originally from Miami but lives up in New York. Last time I checked, he bought this note in Lake City, Florida, and you can see the bar there. That's literally a bar walking to the house. He bought this. Bar was making payments. He bought this pretty cheap, like at $20K. Bar was making payments like every other month, trying to get caught back up. So he sold this at 75% of the UPB, and it was a good day for him because he bought it at 20 cents on the dollar. The new note buyer, I guess, kept it for a while. Bar got back on track, and it was a win-win across the board. Number 9, you'll foreclose. It's going to happen a chunk of the time, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, if you buy vacant property, it's going to happen a whole lot more often there. If you're buying properties where the borrower especially hasn't made a payment in the last 3 years since COVID, was non-performing before COVID, they're definitely going to be non-performing now for the most part. For me, it's a last option a lot of times. We will try to modify most of the time for something or reinstate, but there are times we'll just foreclose. And here's the thing. It's going to ruin that borrower's credit for 7 years if you foreclose versus late pays, which will just haunt them for 2 years. Obviously, there's different time frames in a judicial foreclosure. You've got to go through the court system. Some states like Florida have done mandatory arbitration where you got to try to work out something. That can drag out 90 days versus non-judicial states like Texas, Georgia, Virginia, Missouri. Those states, we have a faster foreclosure time frame. Basically, you just go, once they hit that 90 to 120-day late period, you just basically file it with the county and then go foreclose. Like I say, anywhere from 21 days to 36 months. More your judicial states like New York is 36 months. Puerto Rico is 36 months or longer. New Jersey is like 2 years, unless it's a vacant property, then it's a 6-month expedited process. Illinois, man, it drag on 12 to 24 months. It's one of the most, especially in Cook County. I just don't buy there. It's just unscrupulous. Okay. Foreclosure, $750 to $1,000 in the low end, up to at least 5,000 or more in judicial states. What we do is, if it's in a non-judicial state like Texas, Georgia, we figure in, okay, probably $2,500 to foreclose. A judicial state, we're going to put somewhere between $3,500 and $5,000. That gives you a bit of an idea. And then we'll add another $1,000 to $1,500 in foreclosure costs, like servicing and other things, depending on where it's at. Now, this is why we always want to find out where the foreclosure date is, how far along. If like we were buying these notes in Florida and the seller told us that foreclosure had already been started, well, when we get the information back from the attorneys, they're like, oh, first legal has only been filed like this week. I'm like, that's not the same thing. What we offered was a bid based on foreclosure being near the end, not near the beginning. And so we favored our bid. They wouldn't accept it, so we just canceled. Okay. Now, the great thing is that you, in a foreclosure, since you're the bank, the attorney is going to ask you for bidding instructions. So this is why, if it gets to foreclosure, you want to have a local realtor pull some new comps for you. It may have changed. Properties appreciate differently in 6 to 12 months or have in the past. Okay. And so you're going to tell the attorney, like, okay, like the most you can go up is your full legal balance. That's the most you can bid. But depending on what the value of the property is, you may not want to do that. Now, if you want to take the property back and truly own it, yes. If they owe more than the property's worth, then have the bid be the full legal balance. Okay. Now, if you want to sell it at the auction, then you probably would want to make your maximum bid 80 to 90 cents of legal, or I'm sorry, 80 to 90 cents of actual value, because then people will bid on it. If you go to 70 and that's a good day, great. If there's a bidding instruction, this is why you want to talk to your attorney about what you want to do. They're usually going to start at $100 and work their way up. And if it gets to a point, you can say, listen, make my highest bid. Yes, they owe 150. The house is worth 125. Make my final bid 100. See, we can't sell it. And sometimes you'll sell at the auction. And it's a good day. Other times you'll just take it back. The biggest thing that you want to keep in mind, if you're buying the notes and there's been no legal or, servicing companies, anything out, start the foreclosure process in 30 days. You can always suspend it. Okay. But if the borrower is sitting there rent free and they feel like they're not having to do anything, you need to send the demand letters. You need to send letters out. We actually will, when we buy a non-performing note, 7 days after we fund, we actually send our own hello letter out. Like, hey, we bought your note. You're going to get a letter from the servicing company that we bought it. We're showing this being owed. Your last payment was this. You need to contact us immediately. Otherwise, we're going to continue the foreclosure process or the foreclosure process. We'd like, and that letter actually leads to about a 70% response rate of people responding back to us even before servicing is transferred. So that way we know, like, we bought 49 notes, sent a letter out, and 70% responded back. I mean, 7 on 49 is about 28 notes. Borrowers responded. They wanted to stay. So we knew we could work out with 28 immediately. No, it was more than that. I'm sorry, about 35. So we knew 35 we didn't have to do a lot of legal with. We just basically structured trial payment plans, give them rock. But the other 14, we knew that we were going to have to get a little bit more expensive on the legal side. But we were actually on those 35, I think 30 of them all made payments like day one or sent payments in, so that when servicing was finally transferred to our new servicer, we could apply payments immediately and they were off rock and rolling. Okay. 10 is bankruptcy. Borrowers are going to file bankruptcy chapter 7 or chapter 13 on the residential side. I actually love bankruptcies. It gives you an attorney for your attorney to talk to. Yes, you need to have a separate bankruptcy attorney that can petition the court, but you have an attorney to talk to in a lot of cases. And this works out real well. It will either be a payment plan or you end up with the asset. Now, when somebody files bankruptcy here in the United States, they've got to file bankruptcy disclosure statements, like a 9-page disclosure statement outlining their income, their cash, their assets, their debt, all that stuff. And it's really one of the best pieces of due diligence. You can literally see what they have, what they owe, what their outstanding payments are. It's really phenomenal. You get that from pacer.gov here in the United States. Now, if the borrower's on time with their payments and they're filing bankruptcy, say for credit cards or medical bills, which is kind of common, you can actually have the borrower not put the mortgage in the bankruptcy. Just keep making your mortgage payment, okay? Now, if it's going to be a chapter 13, that's going to be usually a restructuring of debt. The borrower's going to come up with a plan, basically a 5-year plan to get back on track. And most of the time, if they're making their existing payment, it'll be basically for maybe what they're behind on. And we'll see that. So when you look at the bankruptcy filing, make sure you look at, maybe it's just for the back payments and they're still making their existing payments. So that's kind of the plan for like the catch up. Other times it may be a whole new plan. You just got to know the difference in the two. Okay. But if they don't fall through that payment plan, then you can get it discharged, kicked out, get the bankruptcy kicked out, and then finish the foreclosure process. If this is chapter 7, that's liquidation of assets, liquidation of debt. Basically, doesn't mean you get to keep the property. They got to turn the property over. And so you're then either going to get the property turned over to you, like a deed in lieu, or you're going to foreclose. So these can be good. There's a lot of funds out there. Our buddy Jack Krupe used to run a bankruptcy fund, $150 million bankruptcy fund, where all they targeted was BK Chapter 13s because they were basically structured performing notes, and they would pay like 80 cents on the dollar for BK Chapter 13. And they spent that $150 million pretty fast in buying a lot of that stuff and holding on to it. So those are the different exit strategies that we go through. You can kind of see the rainfall effect or the waterfall effect going. You start here and you work your way down in a lot of cases. All right. Any questions? Great. Let's do this. We'll take a quick little break. Let's take a quick 10-minute break. Get up, fresh cup of coffee, come on back at 1/2 past the hour. All right. So let's go through the quick manual. Just want to do a quick overview of it, what's in there. I don't really follow. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there for you to take a look at. I mean, we could spend another whole day just going through the manual and everything like that. But I want to just give you a bit of an update. There's some stuff in there that you definitely want to pay attention to. There's stuff that's not in there all the way that you want to pay attention to as well. Like I said, like Derek asked me to send over the list of 20 questions we did cover last night as we wrapped up. I'll gladly send it over to you guys in an email on Wednesday. But if you click on the link, it should take you to the manual. And it's 203 pages. Okay. Kind of a bit of an outline, like the 250K in 2020. We've been doing that for a while, obviously. Different types of notes for your note niche, the different foreclosure timeframes, costs, state by state level for you, Fannie Mae, normal foreclosure timeframes, other fees that are allowed, which is good for foreclosure, the states that do require some sort of license, okay? Some sort of license. Not necessarily by you, it can be a servicing license because it's not necessarily accurate because like Georgia requires a mortgage broker's license. They've required it for a year, and why it doesn't say that. But anyway, you can go to that. Some of the different ways that we find it. The LinkedIn search, like we talked about that on day one. So it's there for you to reminder kind of exactly what we say roughly to them. We talked about Lane Guide going on there. It still was acting funky this morning. About our financial. This is what the Texas Department of Savings and Mortgage Lending website used to look like. It looks different now. Okay. FDIC.gov list. Some of the different scripts. What you're looking for, things to say, what to say. I've got a couple example emails in there that we send out to ask managers for you to take a look at. Okay, those were written with MailChimp originally. Now we use Keep, just to give you a bit of an idea. Best times to call, some of the scripts for when you're talking to people at banks. Some different markets and sales pricing on that stuff. I put the top 100 media markets in here just in case you didn't know that. And this is kind of the looks of where you should be looking. Yes, you're going to buy notes that maybe aren't in the top 100 markets, but these are pretty much, I mean, excluding like the New York, New Jersey, and LA markets, most of these other cities, you're going to do pretty decently well in if you can buy something at a decent discount. You know what I mean? Some different funding things. List of IRA custodians. We talked about Netra Online, going there to find stuff. This is doing an appraisal search in Orange County, Florida. If you're the county recorders there in Orange County, here's the executive summary we've talked about, kind of what we use. This is kind of the marketing piece. We send this in our letters. If asset managers ask about our company, we'll send them a copy of the executive summary. It's something good to have. Okay. The IRA investor letter. This is kind of what we've sent out. Now, this one I was speaking at a Quest event years ago. Okay. So I actually invite them out to the mixer. Remember we talked about if you're going to a real estate club or you're going, if you go to your local real estate club on once a month, that would be something to send out to people in your local market and invite them to the meetup and have them meet an hour before. And you can talk with people about it. Okay. Just a great way to kind of mixer. Hey, I'll buy a beer or an adult beverage or a cup of coffee. Okay. That's the letter that we send. We'll include some marketing pieces like, hey, what can you put into your IRA on an annual basis? A lot of times the self-directed IRA companies will provide that for you. I actually have an ebook that we've sent out helping people to get off their keys. So we'll talk about some case studies. I have my own book. I wrote 72-page book on how to get started buying real estate for 40% off or greater. Breaking the secret world of note investing. Then we've got these sample case studies. I always send a couple different case studies. These are a little bit older, but I use these as examples. So if you remember when we talked about like Lisa had her deal she closed in Dallas. This is an example. Put your logo at the top, the address of the property. Especially if you already own it, you can share the address. Okay. If you're in the process of owning it, don't share the address, just share the city, like Palm Beach, Florida. Okay. But find a good picture of the property and talk about what's going on, some of the details, but don't throw up on them. Give them specific deals. Tell them what you're doing. You have to talk like you're talking to a fourth grader. A big mistake most note investors do is they throw up on the image. They give all this information, and people look at it and they don't know how to make heads or tails of it. Keep it very, very simple. Okay. There's that one from South Beloit, Illinois. We just talked about Sheila and them. This is one in Cape Coral, is an REO we took back. You can, I put these in Word. It's more efficient for you to design these in Canva because you can stretch the images, you can make it look nice, but it's very, very, anybody can do this. That's what I want you guys to do. Now, what's funny, I have to share this funny story when, you know, you got this in the manual. Somebody pulled a list of IRA investors, and what they did is they just copied these 3 case studies and sent them out. But they left all my information on there. WeCloseNotes.com, my contact information, they left all that on there. So I started getting phone calls from people who got a letter from somebody with my information who wanted to invest with me. And I'm like, idiot, but that's okay. Thank you. Copy of a sample postcard that we bought from Postcard Mania. That's the front. The black, I mean, the back side, we leave kind of blanks for a logo and phone number and email. So we can use it as a business card or data collection. We've used it for a variety of different things. Like if I'm speaking at or do my own meetup, I'll have these on the table, and on the back end side, it might have a case study, or it also might have just a simple, hey, if you'd like to get more information or copy of a presentation, or get on our buyers list, put your name, email, and phone number. Okay. A few years ago, I mean, as you start getting bigger, you may want to advertise. I bought an article with Think Realty Magazine and Investor Review Magazine. It's a 1-page article here on the right-hand side where I talked about 2 different case studies of people using their IRA to invest. That became a great marketing piece that we would send out in our letters. Okay. The investor profile questionnaire, you saw that. We've gone through that with you guys yesterday. We talked about some of the marketing aspect of it, things you need to do. We talked about this briefly yesterday. I'm not going to go through the presentation because I don't need to. How you create one image, one likeness, and share it everywhere else. You know, like we gave Lisa a hard time because she didn't have anything on her LinkedIn for 5 months. But you got to post something. You got to think differently to be ahead. Okay. If you're trying to pitch something, you have to lean and embrace the video side of things. Like I'll give you a great example. I'll go through that in a second. But basically, the presentation on this, we're going to go through one aspect of our 30 by 30 model here in a second. I'll talk about this in just a second with you. There's a sample of that. You definitely want to have an LLC, multiple LLCs. Don't use your own LLC that you use for something else in business. Like Forrest is a realtor. You would not use your LLC for your real estate business to be a note investor. You want to create a separate LLC. And you're going to want to have a different LLC for your own deals and people you partner with. Keep those things separate. Definitely important. We just went through the exit strategies. We'll go through due diligence here in a second. I've got a sheet I'm going to give you guys. There you go. This is a long note evaluation checklist there. It's in there for you. And then we've discussed the vendors in a second. But I want to give you a glossary of terms. For you going read. You know, one thing I did a few years ago, I did a term of the day, note term of the day, and did a short video on it and shared that. That's led to a lot of followers. Okay. There's some stuff in here I should probably go back in here and do. There's a lot I could probably do. This is the longer note evaluation checklist, which I don't necessarily recommend. I mean, it's an engineer's wet dream. All these little things. Some you would do, some you wouldn't. It's kind of maybe a little outdated. But I put it in there so you have some idea. Especially if you don't have a clue on anything, no real estate experience, this is something you can take a look at. Okay. That's 17 pages. All right. I put in a non-circumvent, non-disclosure agreement that you may want to use to send out to people that maybe want to buy notes from you. Talk about your fees. Here's a sample assignment of mortgage purchase agreement. It's a purchase agreement. It's not really a true assignment. We'll throw some assignments. There's a note wholesale agreement in here. If you trust the individual you're selling the note to, just do a separate wholesale agreement and give them a contract, and then they're wiring it to you. If you trust them. If you didn't trust, like Mike Gangster, he bought this note. He's paying $10,000 for the note, and he was sending $4,000 to me and $6,000 to the bank. Okay. Here's a loan sale agreement on a commercial. This is actually Joe, this is on that apartment complex in California, Mansfield. I didn't mind sharing it because the people that are on this contract no longer work for the bank. Greenpoint Mortgage, Inverse Investments, company that we've owned for years. I got 4725 Mansfield Street. Pre-price 468. We bought for 375. Bill of sale is what usually will increase. So what will happen is when you wire in money, it's not done at a title company for a bank. Okay. You wire in funds, they will then send you back a bill of receipt immediately, usually the day of or the morning after. Okay. Assignment deed of trust is on the commercial note. So they signed it to us, to Inverse Investments. Yay. That's notarized. Assignment of leases and rents. A Lange, which is just an endorsement of the mortgage. Assigning the foreclosure process. So we took over counsel if we wanted to do that. This was the counsel that we were assigned to. A commercial letter of intent for purchase of a promissory note, not the purchase of a property. We bought this one on this 300-unit apartment complex from Banco Popular up in Indianapolis back in 2010. I think they owed like $5 million. We picked it up for 60 cents of the dollar. Okay. We actually closed out in 45 days because they provided a lot of information. All right. This is a hello letter that we send out in English and Spanish. If we know it's a Spanish speaking. Here's another loan sale agreement. This was on a portfolio of notes that they literally sent this over to me to buy. I'm like, where are the notes? There's nothing on here. There's supposed to be a list, like they call it Amendment A or where is it in here? Here we go. Exhibit A. There's nothing on there. Like, you want me to sign a contract, but there's nothing on it. That asset manager is an idiot. Mike was his name, if I remember correctly. I won't share his last name, but he was an idiot. Anyway, then you get into kind of what a sample, and Dickie did a really good job sharing yesterday on some of the different evaluations. Like, this is a BPO and a condo that we bought. You know, and what we did is when they sent this, sent a list of notes over to us, we liked this condo on it. And there's a few others that we liked on it were really low balance stuff. So I said, well, we'll give you your price for the condo, but I want you to throw these 3 in for free. I can't give them for free. I said, well, I don't care. Just make the contract no more than 18,900, something like that. And they're like, okay, I think they do this. So they made one for like $7, another one for like 300. I'll share it with you. But there's a title report, ONE, all the file documents for that one condo. You know, if you've never read a loan doc, there you go. Condominium writer, yada, yada, yada. Home equity line of credit. You want to look at the loan docs, definitely important. Taxes owed on that condo. Appraisal district in Orange County. Here we go. This is the loan sale agreement from us and Granite Loan Solutions. So you see, they want $18,920 for the condo. So we'll give you that, but you want to throw in these other 3. So you can see sometimes asking for stuff on the bottom of the barrel, just get creative, is fun. Anything is a write-off because our cost basis now went from the note being 18.9 to 17.6. So you can see $7 for this condo in Baltimore, which was it was junk, but we've wholesaled that note for $5,000. These other 2 in the middle, we just took as losses and released the lien, paid off on this one in Kansas City and this one in Laurel, Mississippi, we could never find. But anyway, there you go. The cheapest note I've ever paid for was $7. My drink last night at the gala cost more than $7. You know, you never know what you're not going to get. I mean, you asked for, we knew it was bottom of the barrel. Said, hey, throw these three in for free. I'd reached out to an investor in Baltimore, and they went and looked at this property. He's like, yeah, I'll give you $5,000 for it. It's like, okay, you're gonna have to foreclose. They're like, that's fine. I'll rehab it. It's worth 20. Great. The bank didn't want it because it wasn't a piece of shit. They didn't want, or Grant didn't want it because it was a piece of crap. Okay. So that's what's in the manual right there for you guys. Take a look at it. If you need forms or something like that, feel free to reach out to me. I may have it, I may not. One thing I wanted to share with you guys too is we've been doing little stuff every day. Okay. Oh, did I not share my damn screen? Damn it. Did I not show? I was clicking on the link. I was clearly clicking on the damn it all. Let me go back to it. Sorry. That's what I get for not looking at my screen. So this is what I was just going through the manual on that link there, guys. Sorry, you didn't really miss out on anything. Oh yeah, video purpose for I'm not worried about them on the replay. Okay. But there's, you can go through all that stuff, and that's why I clicked on it. So I didn't really miss it. So one thing I did want to share though is the power of doing things a little bit each day. Okay. So look, one thing that we found that works really well is sharing something on a daily basis. This is going to probably be the last thing I talk about marketing wise with you. But we've found that sharing one little video per day. Now, look, I am not a dancing fool. I can barely dance with two-step. Okay. But one thing that we have found that's worked pretty well is using TikTok to create short little videos. And I'm talking like a minute and a half. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you see I've been posting a little video about a foreclosed apartment or a living system. I've got, or about a note for sale or a note that's available. You can do, I did note term of the day. I've done questions of the day, stuff like that. I've been doing it almost daily. There's been some times where I took a week off or 2 weeks off because of travel. But this thing is actually, I've gotten really excited about it because when I upload it in TikTok about what I'm working on or the note term, I mean, literally, I just gave you the note term of the day. You all could go in there and pull a note term of the day or a real estate term of the day, or if you're walking a property, like Forest is this property, 26 acres we went and took a look at. We walked around with a video on it and actually shared that as a way to help try to, share the video. Well, it got a bunch of views. Okay. Question from somebody. A minute and a half is a documentary on TikTok. Yeah, exactly. But I keep mine to under a minute because then I can upload it to my YouTube and it's become a YouTube short with less than 60 seconds. Okay. But you can see the followers, especially the last few weeks, have really started to blossom. Like here, they were going a little bit per day, a little bit. I get to add a few normal videos, but right here, I started sharing assets. May 20th is when I shared the video about the Fairmont Hotel in Austin going to foreclosure. And along that's really blown up. And then I shared this on the 15th was another foreclosure property in Houston, I believe. And when I shared on Austin this past week, it's really starting to skyrocket. The reason I'm bringing this up is not only is it getting great views here, I'm connecting people who are following me, I'm building an audience. So anytime I upload a video, guess what? I don't say 2,000 people see it, but it's gone from the normal 200 to 500 to 136,000 on one video. Real estate's not a big niche on TikTok, okay? But that's why it's working, because I am hitting the niche of those that there. You want to kind of plant your flag and grow it there. The reason I'm telling you this is you all can do the same thing. Like there's a guy that's selling land, a bearded Brady or whatever his name is. He's going around walking properties down in like Pleasanton or empty acreage, talking about the deals that they're selling, and he's getting a huge amount of hits off it. He's getting a whole lot of people, they're selling on terms, all stuff. I bring it up for us because that's a possibility for you. I was trying to tell Lisa to do this with her listings and deals. You don't have to do it. You don't have to go out and walk the property. If you don't want to, just pull it and put it behind you in a green screen. But the thing is, this is leading to people. I've already raised capital from this. I've had people sign up for classes. I've had people opt in. I just had a family office reach out to me literally this morning on there off a video I posted a week ago, wanting to connect with me to see about putting some money to work. So that's the great thing Was it show me the messages? I don't think it'll show me the messages on here. But if you're not sharing, nobody knows the hell that you're here. And what I do is literally one little video per day, and it goes across all my socials. Same video. I just upload it and copy paste the description in there. So it goes from TikTok to YouTube. Those are the two biggest things. YouTube doesn't, I mean, YouTube does better in the afternoon for views on my channel. TikTok does better in the mornings and then the evenings. But I still upload it in Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Threads. Where else I throw it on? If you're on Trump Social, throw it on Trump Social, okay? But it's really starting to pay off a little bit each day. Now, when I first started doing this, I went to an event called FinCon. And I would highly encourage you all to go there. I don't get paid to go to this thing. I mean, it's been the most valuable event I've been to. Okay. If it's where money and marketing meet. Okay. And we're all in the marketing phase. We're all in the money phase of some sort. Okay. If you're going to be a real estate investor, an insurance agent, there's all sorts of people come to this. Financial advisors from Canada. I mean, John, I would highly encourage you that you go to this. Forest is maybe something great. It's in Atlanta in October. It's 3 days of great stuff. There's been panels. It's one of the best networking events I've been to. Okay. Now, yes, if you have a podcast, a newsletter, YouTube channel, it will help you. I mean, I walk out of there with so many great marketing ideas. I don't know. I got booked on 30 other podcasts, which led to audience coming in. I booked probably 30 people on my podcast, which cross-pollinated audiences. They've got a women in money aspect of it, but it's really a lot of authors are there, great networking roundtables with people. There's maybe about 2,500 to 3,000 creators. There's Dustin Heiner. I don't know if I'm rolling in here, but like the guys from Stacking Benjamins, Joe Paul Sawi, there's Paula Pant, who's got a big podcast, Afford Everything. I mean, you really get to hang out with some great people there. And I love this. I'm a big advocate. I wish they would do more in marketing. I've offered up some stuff and they're kind of stuck in their way for not doing a lot what they do. And that's fine. A-okay. But it is, for the price of it, it is well worth going. If you're a money nerd, which we all are, and I'm a big money nerd, it's worth going. Like, I got the idea to do the little short video one a day because I was very anti-TikTok. I was like, oh, I'm not going to dance on there. I'm not a pretty girl going to show off my boobs or whatever like that. Maybe you want to see it. I don't know. But what I'm getting at is I started looking what some people were sharing, and a 1 minute video day or 2 minute video per day. I was like, I can do that. I can dedicate a minute Monday through Friday at least to do something. I said, well, let me see. And I said, well, not a lot of people are sharing on Saturday. Not a lot of people are sharing on Sunday. So let me share on some of those days. And it's literally started to take off. It doesn't have to be big. You talk about a product that you have, a deal, a flip, a note you're evaluating. Just share. It will lead to people. And this has become one of the easiest things that we do, but it's also had one of the biggest impacts because we're taking one little video for TikTok and then resharing it every place else. And then sometimes they're not even my original thing. Sometimes I'm stealing other people's ideas. Oh, here's an apartment complex that's foreclosed on my post. I was like, oh, let me go find the details of it and then share that. Okay. Honestly, this event probably has had the second most impact on my business as a whole. The first that had the biggest impact is for the Traffic and Conversion Summit that takes place. Well, it used to take place in San Diego every year. Now it's in Las Vegas this year. That's a big event. I mean, that's like 7,000-8,000 marketers from across the country. That helped put me ahead of a lot of people in real estate because of the marketing skills I learned. And so that's where I've learned the most. This has been great because it's really solely focused on people in the finance industry. I've attended a lot of podcasting conferences, and those are great when you're starting off brand new, but I really needed something that was more dedicated to my niche. And this has been finance. I've learned stuff from finance professionals, from rehabbers, from insurance, just so many great skills on this. If you're going to go to an event and that's something you want to learn a little bit better, you will not walk away disappointed on this one. Okay. The one in that's in Vegas, Traffic and Conversion Summit. It's a TCS. Let me just pull it up. It's a little bit more expensive. Traffic and Conversion Summit. There we go. Put on by a company here in actually Austin, digitalmarketer.com. There we go. So they got their, let's see here. Now I've used this. See, yeah, the missus just had it. This is in March. Let me go back here. Where was their 24 agenda? Where was this? So this is in January in San Diego. Okay. So you can see some of the content, some of the speakers. Now I've liked doing this because I go to the sponsors and look at the sponsors who were sponsors for it. Oh no, that's that. Well, that's okay. No, I don't want to do that. This can be a bit expensive. Okay. Was it $800? I think something they were at. They discount. It was like $1,500. It used to be a $2,000, $3,000 weekend because it was so expensive with the hotels and stuff. But I learned a lot for a couple of years. And Roland Frazier, guy I learned a lot of marketing from, is one of the big creators of this. They big, they sell out the whole Westminster Hyatt downtown and the Marriott, the Ramada, whatever it is downtown on the coast, on the coast there in San Diego. But I learned a lot of marketing from these guys. Now, one thing I wanted to share with you guys that is helpful for you kind of stay on track. Do you ever feel like you wake up in the morning, like, what am I supposed to do today? You ever feel like that? Like, what am I going to do? How am I going to market? Because look, I know Monday morning, if people walk out, leave this class, they're feeling like, what do I do? What should I be doing on a day in, day out basis? Like today. Yes. Okay, great. So I briefly shared this in the manual, but I wanted to share this with you guys. Something very simple that you guys can create, that we created to take the guesswork out of it. And just go into Excel. And what we do, we call this our 30-30 marketing matrix. Basically, this is across the top is a lot of data. I've got my current one that's different completely from you guys, obviously. And that's okay. But I wanted to go through this to show you guys kind of what you can do. And what it is, it's pretty simple makeup. But basically, it's a spreadsheet, 30 activities across the top, and your 31 days of the month down across the bottom. And some people have taken this and given this to their VAs, and the VAs just check it all off. Okay. Now I've been using some version of this since 2007, 2006, 2007. That's when I first started working with Roland Frazier, and he had something like this for real estate investors. And I thought this was genius. I was like, oh, this looks exactly like what I did in my sales training thing. Like, we'd have a daily log of what you had accomplished, right? And who you had meetings with and what products you sold and that kind of stuff. We called it our commissions tracker because we had to be very specific about what we did, but it was a meeting tracker. And for you guys, it's pretty simple in keeping up. What do I need to do daily? What do I need to do once a week? And then what do I need to accomplish monthly? Okay. Now, you're not going to do all of these every day. I hope you understand that. Okay. But there are things you can do daily that take 5-10 minutes to get done or get started, and the rest that you fit in around your schedule. Okay. So, like, what I always say is, hey, if you don't do anything else, post a real estate article. That's going to be my daily thing. A real estate article, a real estate video. Okay. Using Octopus to connect with 100 asset managers or 100 investors in your state or the state you're investing in. Okay. Commenting on other people's posting articles on LinkedIn or social media articles, or commenting on what people post in LinkedIn groups. That's another thing in there. Bigger pockets keywords, looking who responded to the keyword search that we did yesterday for 50K to invest, 100K to invest, or notes for sale, right? And then looked at LinkedIn connection posts, going on there, seeing who's connecting with you, who's sending stuff out to you, vice versa. Okay. That's once a day. You do weekly activities, set up your buffer. That was at buffer.com, where you can set up your automatic posting throughout the week. Okay. Question here from somebody. Do I use AI to find content, not create it? Yeah, I've used AI. You can use AI to find content, or create it too. The thing about using an AI source like ChatGPT, now ChatGPT is free. They've got a version of it online. Bard, I think, is the Google AI, is connected to Google, so I can often find articles. Let's go back here. Let me see something here. I didn't check this yesterday. Let me pull this up. Can you? All right, so Bard, we're on Bard here. Yesterday, for those that didn't, we said let's create a letter campaign going to IRA investors, right? Let's click. Remember, if we went back here, create 52 subject lines to send an email letter out to your database as part of the marketing aspect. So let's see if it'll do the find me 3 current articles about apartments going to the foreclosure auction that I can use in my email newsletter for note investors. I think we'll do that. Okay, let's do for articles for your news, how I can provide you with some resources to find relevant articles yourself. Okay. The auction.com 10x real estate disposition. I didn't know that. Okay. Let's see. Can you find me 3 articles from the Real Deal on commercial properties going to foreclosure? See if that helps. If I pick something. There you go. Can you give me 3 current articles about people about people using their SDIRA to invest in real estate? Let's see if it does anything like that. There you go, February 2024. There you go. So there's a couple. Do you like that? Oh, damn it. I'm sorry, guys. I forgot that again. Shit. So let's see here. I typed this, unfortunately, so that was the first one I searched. The next one I searched here was, can you find 3 articles from the Real Deal? I picked a newsletter that I target on commercial properties going to foreclosure that I can share with my email letters. And there you go. They give you the actual article. Now you could basically copy paste it straight in your newsletter. Say, hey, here's 3 articles. And then I did, can you find me 3 articles for the last 12 months about people using it, right? No, but there's a recent articles on SDIRA investing, which would be work. But that's worth your time, right, guys? Like with what's another thing that you could use? Can't you find me 3 recent news articles on people investing in real estate that is beating the let's see, just something like that. Can you find me 3 recent new articles of people investing in real estate is beating the stock market There you go. That's May 2024. Now you want to read these articles, like Barron's, it might give you a free article to read, stuff like that. But those would be something to look at there for you. Yeah, it's pretty awesome, right? Okay, so here's another thing you can do. Can you write a 500 word email that to include these 3 articles for my email database of real estate investors? Boom, shakalaka. That's a pretty good email right there. That is a game changer. Exactly, John. So, but with that, you could go over here to your 30/30, and that's where your weekly email comes in. Write an email about that. Okay. Um, Send an email to your investors warm database. A follow up email 2 days later. Posting it as LinkedIn articles. Okay. Do a Facebook Live, 10 to 30 minutes talking about one of the articles too. Short LinkedIn video. These all can be the same thing, taking one and posting your video across those different platforms. Go into your meetup group locally. Stop taking away my excuses for not doing marketing. Yeah, but that's the thing. Here's the number that you are not alone, John. 90% of people, 99% of people aren't doing anything either. Hey, guess what? You belong. But if you want to be that 1%er, guess what? You have to take your things to the next level. And it's all the stuff that we're going through is really, it should be removing all the excuses. You just got to put the time. And that's one of the things that I do. My first hour is usually marketing. When I'm sitting down here, it's marketing. Okay. It's marketing. What am I doing today? What am I focused on today? I got to spend an hour on marketing. And it may be either creating, recording, or coming up with articles like this that will lead to other things. Like this morning, I'm sitting out having my coffee at 8 o'clock this morning, just kind of getting my thoughts together. I'm flipping through. I actually found literally in like 10, I'm not joking, 10 minutes, my topics for my 5 videos all next week, Monday through Friday, my 5 little short videos, all just taking a few minutes. Okay, now I found a whole lot more based on what we just found there. And that's why I like Bard, because it's connected to the internet and you can pull some stuff. Okay. But the whole point is you got to pencil this in. I get it. We got kids. We're dropping kids off. We've got our spouses. We've got meetings we got to take care of. If you don't control your schedule, everybody else will. And that was one of the big things that Roland and Greg Reed taught me. Like, Scott, nobody is going to respect your schedule until you start respecting it. Okay. And that's doing the same things. I know some of us are disorganized people in a world of chaos, right? But that's what I say. Like, sit down, spend an hour on this stuff, use some of these tools to help you find it. Make a list, 52 articles. Well, there you go. You got stuff planned out. Let me go and post my article. Or maybe I don't have time to write it, so I'll pre-write 3 or 4 emails. Okay. Oh, I get an idea. Help me write a 500 word email or less to bank special asset managers or whole loan traders about the possibility, about if they actually about selling their non-performing loans to my firm and the advantages of them selling their notes. Let's see what it says to that. That's a pretty good email. Might be a little long, but there you go. Boom shakalaka. I've never asked that one before. Yep, there you go. Oh, that's a good idea. Let's try it. Let's see. Can you do can you there you go. So you could flip it from one long one to one shorter one. Oh yeah. You might say how we can help unlock the benefits of selling your NPLs to our firm. There you go. So going back over here, you know, going to Bigger Pockets, posting a deal in Bigger Pockets, posting a letter, Instagram asset post, podcast guesting, send an email out to your Octopus contacts, LinkedIn groups posts, Facebook groups, keyword searches on LinkedIn. If you type in like note investor, note buyer, you'll find other people that are posting there. Monthly asset manager email. There you go. We just wrote it and wrote a second one. Call 50 asset managers. Do an investor webinar or LinkedIn lunch and learn, going through your deals, the deal of the week, listen to the week. Network with your vendors, reach out to them, see what they have going on, any events. That's one thing that we do a really great job is promoting our vendors because they promote us right back. Okay. So it's a win-win. Not only does it work like if we've got affiliate relationships with them where we make some money off of that, but it's just good business to promote your vendors. Okay. Attend your local RIA, attend a live conference once a month, do some postcards out to IRA investors, and then even thank you notes and phone calls to folks. I know it's a lost art. I forget to do that a lot of times, but I'll send out thank you cards to people that have me on their podcast or vice versa. Question here. Did you take any training on YouTube video hosting? And I've taken a lot of training on posts. I've been to several video podcasts or podcast conferences. I didn't do so much on the video training side. I just started sharing video. I just started creating a little video. I would 1 or 2 minutes get the points around. 3 points to a video. And then I use tools like TubeBuddy and some other things to help me come up with things. There's an AI service I use called Capshow that I upload my YouTube video to, and when I want to do it, and it'll come up with a good description and points for me based on what I talk about in the video, and then it sends it back to me. So this green screen is just a Canva brick wall with my logos on it. I just looked at a couple of different things. When my green screen, let's go back here, stop sharing. My green screen, let me just share. It's just literally a green screen. Choose virtual background. None. That's what it looks like. Green cloth hanging. That's the window on my second floor. There. So that's just a green cloth hanging on my pony wall up here. Okay. And I can change it. I could change it for an event. I could change it I did an episode on different ways to find. I could blur it if I want to, and it doesn't really do anything. But I like the black. Black always makes people look good. Okay. Anyway, so using some of that stuff to let's do this. You could I've done this before. Somebody asked me about this the other day. I was like, all right, so let's do this. Create a complete due diligence checklist for evaluating lists of non-performing notes, first liens. Let's see what it says for that. Yeah, so this isn't so bad. Like if I was buying second liens, I would definitely check the credit history. Don't really care about the credit report. Okay. Don't employment verification, not really big. Collateral, the property valuation, appraisal, AVMC. We don't need appraisal, we need a BPO, right? It's pretty good on some of the stuff like the servicing legal. Okay. It's a starting point. Yeah. You're going to create your own. I mean, I've got a due diligence checklist I'm going to go through with you guys right now. Oh, did I not share the damn screen? Oh, I'm getting Sunday. There you go. It's okay. It's Let me pull up mine so you guys have it and then we'll send it out. All right. This is there's a version of it in the manual, but we've updated it since then. And we've tweaked it. I still try to keep it shorter, but this is 4 pages long versus 1 page long. We've added some more stuff to it. So let's go through that. And let me go ahead and let me do this. Pause this. All right. So that we have a separate video. Because I know you're going to want to come back to this on a video by video basis if you're watching the replay. So the due diligence checklist here is this, something that we put together. It's had varying numbers on it, depending on where you're at. And you're going to kind of create your own, depending on where you're at. Some people do a little bit more. I'm like, okay. Most of this is going to talk about on the front end to the back end. Like you're going to do some information on the front end differently than once your bid's accepted and you move into actually closing on the deal. Okay. There's a 1-pager in the manual. I'll send this along with the 20 questions that you asked for as well, Derek. I'm updating the manual as we speak, obviously, to ask new stuff, but it is in there. Derek, I think you're in the WCN crew or whatever like that. So it should be in the WCN crew membership for you. Yeah. All right. So the note evaluation and due diligence checklist is here. Acquire the tape and ask price and expectations and when bids are due. You'd be surprised how many people forget to ask when bids are due or what the price. Filter the tape. Select the states you want. Remove New York, New Jersey, Chicago, Wisconsin. Look at the last payment they want to be greater than 90 days delinquent, unless you're buying performing notes. Property type, delete the mobile homes, manufactured home, and raw land. That's different if you're looking for those type of assets. Most people, this is what we're getting rid of. Okay. BPO values has got to be greater than 25. UPB's got to be greater than 25 as well. Otherwise, it's just too small balance in a lot of cases. Remove assets with P&I payments under 250 per month, unless you're using your own funds, because they're just hard to make any money on something like that. Remove assets with less than 10 years of payments remaining if you're using other people's money. Okay. You may want to remove vacant assets that have been non-performing for 3 years or more, as they may need extensive repair. Filter for undesirable locations. Use batch geo to remove rural. Look for negative features, boarded up windows, high crime area. Remove from small cities less than 10K populations, and you have resources there. You may want to remove from troubled areas or states that have extensive licensing issues or domestic issues, unfriendly landlord areas like Cook County, okay, Oregon, Washington State, some of those. Parts of Memphis have rough areas, okay. Jackson, Mississippi's got a real bad gang problem. Okay. Check taxes and borrower name using Metro Online. Make sure they match up. If date does not match up, check for tax sale or date transfer if more then current taxes years are owed. You will reduce your bid by that amount. Estimate the fair market value. We talked about how this is just online before you actually order something, your bid's accepted. You determine your fair market rent with Rental Meter, Zillow, or Craigslist. If legal balance or payoff column is not included, you will need to determine this. Take P&I payments times the number of months since last payment. Add this amount plus UPB column to estimate legal balance. That's estimated. Okay. Resort tape for equity and negative equity deals. Basically, if there's deals that have equity and deals that have negative equity, you really have kind of two tapes, and the pricing to those are different. If those that have equity, you're probably going to have to pay somewhere around 80% of the legal balance. If it's worth 150 and the legal balance is 100. If it's the same thing right at legal balance versus value, then you're going to go like the stair step model. We'll talk more about that later on. Okay. Get bank pricing expectations and calculate your pricing. Calculate your annual cash flow for occupied assets. P times 12 divided by purchase price. Potential mod cash flow rates. P principal interest times 16 divided by purchase. The reason we do 16 months is he asked for 4 months of skin in the game for the borrower. Okay. If last payment is older than 3 years, it's probably going to not be a loan modification. And we go through kind of how to figure that stair step pricing. So if it's negative equity, basically anything assets below 30K in fair market value, you're going to offer 25% of fair market value. I wouldn't go below that. I wouldn't go above that just because it's a lower asset. 30K range, 35%. 40K range, 45%. 50K range, 55% above. Assets above 50K, 55%. Reduce for longer foreclosure markets. Increase if foreclosure is almost completed less than 90 days. May need to be at 70% if it's almost an REO. Okay. Price of note offering, look at unpaid taxes, get an APM number, check BK status, contact HOH management company. You may have to look for other unit listings in there have sold. And then submit your bid. You're usually going to look for minimum hurdle rate for is 15% ROI, depending on your money cost for reperforming, 20% or more on foreclosures, just because things have gotten more expensive. This used to be 30%, but as things got more expensive, costs have gone up. We've reduced that a little bit. If you do that, that's still going to probably leave you in a good spot. And of course, you may end up killing the deal anyway, going through your due diligence and verifying everything. Submit your offers. If offer accept, start paid to due diligence. If offer countered, review your numbers. If offer not accepted, mark your calendar to follow up with seller on offering in 30 days as many deals fall through. Okay. Then your full due diligence. Order title, look for outstanding liens, verify market value. Yada, yada, like what we went through with Dickie yesterday. Insurance, make sure to review a servicing company for property insurance. Look at the collateral files. These are the things that you want to have in there or look for. Okay. Servicing company and legal, things you want to look for. These are all been added to the list. Question here. So, like I said, John asked a good question. On average, how many deals do you need to review to find a keeper? So it's about a 10% closing ratio. Okay. So if you make 200 offers, you're going to probably close on 20 of them. That may be higher, it may be less, depending on where you're at and what you're bidding on. Okay. So it all varies. Depends on what your focus is and how specific of an area are you at. So that's what I'm saying. If you make 200 offers and you have a 10% closing ratio, that's going to get your 20 deals. Should give or take. Okay. Some people it's been higher than that. Other people it's been less than that. Like one lady was bidding on all these scratch and dent loans, and I don't waste my time on scratch and dent loans. It's a big waste of time because they're not going to take a discount where they need to be. They want 90, 95 cents a dollar. Doesn't make any sense. Okay. So on stuff that you actually have a realistic approach, it's going to be probably about a 20% closing rate. So if you make 20 offers, you're probably going to end up closing on 2. Okay. That number will get better the more you do, John. Like John Veronica Gore, though, they closed on 6 notes in their first 30 days. We found a tape when they made 20 offers, they closed on 6. That's a pretty good closing ratio for your first 30 days. They've closed on 30 notes so far in their first 6 months. Okay. Cal's more picky about his stuff because he's raising capital. I think Cal's closed on 7, but he's made a whole lot more than that. He's probably made more than 70 offers. Probably, maybe not. He may do that. So it's just it all dependent on where your comfort is and where you're looking to buy. Does that make sense? I can't be specific on it. But the whole point is too, like if I was Joe and I'm just making offers on California deals, I probably got to make offers on 100 to get one or two, but that one or two is valuable, right? It's going to probably be a really great deal, 100K plus off profit, if not more. Okay. What you need to do with your collateral files after closing, property after closing, stuff like that. So that's the full, much more of a more complete due diligence list. I tried to squeeze it on 4 pages. It probably should be on 5 or 6 with some of the stuff stretched out. But that is there for you, and I will send that to you guys if you don't have it already. Okay. Good stuff. Something else I was going to talk about. I'm trying to remember. Oh, I know what it was. Before we let this go, before we take a quick little midday break here, what you may want to do as well is go over, depending on what city you're buying in, you might want to look and see if there's like a crime map, like Chicago crime map. They used to have a crime map. Let's see here if it'll let you do that. There you go. It does. So you could, I think we used to be able to type in the address of stuff in Chicago and it'd pop up and you could see what's going on. What gangs are across the street. Some of these bigger cities have, let me do this, Austin crime map. There you go, it does. So you can kind of see, this is great. You can look in to see a specific city and see what the crime map is. Should be able to. Crime. Let's see here. 12808 Cape May Lane, Austin. I don't know. I gotta figure this out. Aerials. It's weird. There used to be one thing I would highly do though, if you're buying in a new city, reach out to the local police department and give them the zip code and tell them, hey, what's the crime map on? I mean, Trulia used to be really great because it would show that stuff, but Trulia has changed up quite a bit. You know, I'll try the filters later on. We got other things we need to worry about. Okay. Another thing I would look at too is obviously call the zoning department if you see that your property may be a little bit run down or stuff like that. Pick up the phone, talk to the zoning department. I mean, that's a great place. Code violation, the zoning department too can tell you if there's some distressed assets there. I've always found when I was doing traditional real estate investing, that would be a great list because they would literally give me the list of assets that had issues that I could go take a look and drive by those assets. And if they were vacant, they worked out to be pretty good deals for me to try to find the borrowers and take them over 72 or work something out. Okay. Great. All right. What I want to do right now, guys, let's 11:30 right now. So let's do this because I don't want to dive into a spreadsheet now and go through the breaking down process and then take a break. So let's take your midday break right now and come back right at top of the hour. It is 11:31, 29 minutes. Come back at right at noon, and then we'll do a deep dive into the tape breakdown. Okay. And then we'll go from there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the Zoom, turn it off, and I'll bring it back on at